Thanks again for joining us on the program TMI on the ITV network. Let's get our discussion segment on. I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Washington Osa Osifo Esquire. So this is a delight to have you on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The Honorable Commissioner for Water and Sanitation. Well, we'll not be talking about water and sanitation today, even though that's a very, very serious and a challenging issue in our world today. But because when we have stability in governance and in government, it brings a lot of development, and of course you can tackle water and you can bring forth sanitation. Yeah. Over the years, there's always been this issue that comes up every now and then, friction between state executives and their deputies, and sometimes you wonder why would that ever happen in the first place. A state executive comes on a joint ticket with his deputy, all through the campaigns and all of that, you know, then they come into power. Few months into power, you start hearing of cracks, you start hearing of disaffection, and until it becomes a full-blown crisis that takes its toll on governance, on development, and of course the lifespan of that government. What is the root cause of this challenge?
Well, Sonny, this is a very challenging it's a very challenging topic, but I can't question your authority as the umpire here to determine what you do, you know, questions you want to ask as one who interrogates the system. I'm sure this has bothered you and quite a lot of persons, including myself. And the beauty of this discussion today is such that you are a researcher, and to an extent I'm also a researcher, so we're brothers, you know, are fellows in that. I think I've been worried. I've been around, but I'm not going to make my submissions on the basis of what I have seen as a participant observer, been there over the years. It will be a combination of everything, what I've read, what I've researched, and what I've written about, even as early as 10 years ago. I can tell you that this contraction they call joint ticket ought not to have been in the first instance, again because of human nature. Unfortunately, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as it is said to be today, which is can be said to be Decree 24 promulgated in 1999, you know, that is basically the Constitution. It is the instrument of the khaki boys, the military boys, in the quest of Nigeria to port from what used to be, which is the military dictatorship, to civilian or democratic rules. There was a need to bring about a document, so to speak, that shall be called a constitution. It is the decree that called it the Constitution of the people, of we the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and not the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it was not carefully thought through, you know, before bringing it to be. And that constitution, if you go further, what the Constitution did in Chapter 6, particularly in Part 1 and Part 2, where it created the office of the governor, created the office of the deputy governor, assigned responsibilities to the office of the governor without assigning any responsibility to the office of the deputy governor, went ahead to determine how the office of the governor can become vacant, and vis-a-vis the office of the president, the vice president, and down the line. I have seen, particularly in Section 130, where the office of the president was created, and Section 141, where the office of the vice president was created, you know, and you come further to Section 143 and 144, that talks about how a president is removed from office under the condition of impeachment, which particularly is in the hands of the National Assembly, and even in Section 144 that talks about where the president also can be removed, the conditions for his removal that has to do with his escorts, the percentage and what must happen for him to be removed. And you go further to conditions that can bring about where the vice president can be the president. Conditions that will warrant the vice president to become the president, which is in Section 146, and again in Section 148 that talks about the discretionary powers of the president, as it were, where he takes 100% supposedly against his running mate, you know, and the joint ticket, which is You know, it's a phraseology that, I mean, that does not fit into the arrangement of
So
proper
this is
governance.
a constitutional problem.
And if you come to the state, that is in part 1 of chapter 6. If you come to the state, you know, in part 2 of the same chapter 6, you discover that it's in that line. 176 also talks about the creation, and 86, you know, talks about the creation of the office of the deputy. 76 talked about the office of the creation of the governor, and it comes down in that nature. 180, 180, 81, 183, and all of that. So what it means particularly is that you have a system that designed a boxing ring, and put 2 human beings inside that ring, where one is given the absolute power to determine how he will work with his number 2, and at the end of the day, then the number 2 himself stays under that condition and is waiting to be worked with. Even when he's being worked with, at some point ambition begins to well up. When he reads the covers of he opens his constitution and he sees it, and the constitution tells him, well, you are a co-owner or co-pilot in this. However, you do not tell the main pilot what to do. The only way you can tell the main pilot if you are interested in flying this plane is, 1, these conditions must happen, which is that this main pilot must become mad by reason of infirmity of the mind or infirmity of the body, for which to be certified by medical doctors that he cannot continue, or is he capable of continuing his responsibility as governor or as president, and that he may, by reason of death, in the event of death, he can be, you know, by reason of sickness, incurable, it can be, by reason of impeachment, it can be. Now, the totality, or even resignation, the totality of all of this is such that it does not mean well. The Constitution suggests that it creates in the minds of the deputy that if I must be, then this man who is the governor, who I call my boss, must either die, or he must become mad, or all manners of things that are not incurable, that would suggest that he's incapable of running his office may happen to him.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that is what can bring in. Now, the further traps that is created as human beings are always insatiable. The ones are insatiable. At the end of the day, what happens to Macbeth in the Shakespearean work of Macbeth, that beautiful piece of work, can begin to happen to all deputies or vice presidents, because they are human beings.
Okay.
All right? Excuse me.
Okay.
What it means is that Macbeth was told by the witches, all hate Macbeth, Thane of Cawdor.
Yes.
He that shall become king thereafter.
Yes.
No man born of a woman can do anything to harm Macbeth.
Yes.
However, beware of Macduff. Now, in all settings, you see the deputy governors and the vice president becoming the Macbeth in terms of ambition. Having been deputy, having been vice president, it is just one leg that is left for you to be that, which number 1 is.
Yeah.
But you too have also forgotten that the reason there will always be another Macduff, to the extent that when you come in to the position, the more bloodier, the nearer in blood you are. When you come into that position, you will have to, the Constitution again has also said, you will have to still fill their vacancy that becomes existent. And what you plan for the number 1 also becomes of your lot. So it's a merry-go-round. It's a merry-go-round. Until and unless you are able to stop the ambition of men and men from Britain.
How do you tackle this problem? Because from the background research and analysis that you've given, this is the provision of the Constitution, and nobody can do otherwise. Are you in any way recommending for an amendment of the Constitution to be specific in terms of the duties and responsibilities of deputies to executive? Because it looks like they are just rubber stamp, and whatever direction the number 1 says it should go, that's where they should go. Are you recommending constitutional amendment?
You know, the truth is that I might be sounding immodest, but let me sound immodest for the purpose of saying something as far as this discussion is concerned. Human nature will always be human nature. Okay, what I have seen and what I have read is that the peace in states depends, so to speak, on the holder of the office of the governor, and how uncontrolled, I want to say, the ambition of number 2 or their number 2s, or even the president, how uncontrolled it is. Now, the governor or the president in his wisdom may choose to give everything. When I mean everything to his number 2. But that cannot tame the appetite of the number 2 aspiring to be governor or the president in a ticket that is said to be joint in the first instance of the 4 years and perhaps the next 4 years. Even if the governor, the deputy governor and the vice president is so decent in character, maybe because of religion they are tamed to say that one thing at a time. God has done so much for you. You never aspire to be that you could be this. Now that you are here, number 2 is good enough. Now, but somebody, it's either the wife, the mother, the sister, you know, the witches of this world that also spoke to Macbeth, that spoke to Macbeth. You will always have them around them. You must not constantly be number 2. He's told. He's a good man. He wants to remain there. That's fine. But his wife looks at the wife of the governor, the wife of the president, number 1, and she's saying, I cannot continue to be number 2. The mother of the number 2 says that I cannot continue to be the mother of number 2. If I can be the number 2, and the chances are there that my son can be number 1, why can't I? The friends of number 2, they are saying, can't you see that all appointments are going to friends of number 1? You become number 1 such that you can also carry us along. It is not so much to say because they love the vice president or the deputies. They are just pushing him and prompting him to become president, just as Macbeth and Macbeth's wife did to Macbeth. And at the end of the day, the trouble is always there. You now discover that you may have not been born of a woman in the natural way, but you have forgotten that there's what they call cesarean birth, and that cesarean birth is such that you didn't pass through the normal natural route procedure to come. However, you grew in the womb, therefore you have a red blood that flow in you. You breathe air, and you do everything that will make anyone define you as human. So what it is that it would have been better that, whereas this was a document put together in a hurry by the military boys in the quest for Nigerians to now embrace where we are today, you know, of enjoying democratic governance. Now they gave us Decree 2024 as constitution. Now, but in their wisdom also, because they also did some very fine jobs in that what we call constitution, there is a window, knowing that no man is finite in wisdom and in knowledge. They put it there that Section 9 will allow you, whatever we didn't do well, that you think you want to do well, these are the procedures you can do it well. Section 9 of the Constitution amendment is guaranteed. Now, I think that, having seen it from 1999 to date, that the human nature will always well up, you know, to demand for what originally was not given to them, or to say that even though we are already in, we can have more and call for the head of the number 1. To the extent that the number 1 does not sleep, the only prayer he prays is that, Lord, I don't know who my enemies are. But even when he says that, perchance he knows that his mind continues to tell him that your enemies may just be the number 2. And when the number 2 is also praying and saying that, God, elevate me, elevate you to where? To where? You are already number 2, whether in state or whether in federal, you are never elevate you to where? So when you are praying to be number 1, okay, even though you don't say it, because you are trying to tame your appetite,
yes,
but something in you, God that searches the intent of every man, knows that what you are praying for is that you want to take his office. You want that office to become desolate and another will take over. Who is the other that we are talking about? So the number 1 and number 2, they live on that, you know, that understanding. Okay, fair enough that I am, but if you want to be, certain things must happen to me.
Okay, let me ask you this question. If we are recommending more visibility for number 2, either at the state or federal level, more responsibility, wouldn't that be tantamount to having 2 captains in a boat, which would create more crisis and more confusion for the state or the government, as it were? And in any case, this government style or system of government is what we borrowed from America. Is this more or less like a Nigerian thing or a black man's thing or an African thing, that we're always seeing this friction between executives and their deputies? Because we hardly hear of, you know, some of these crises of friction in other civilized climes. Yes.
Okay, now, you see, well, we are human beings, yes, but some are differently wired by nature. And there is a topic or subject they call the nature of man, whether you like it or not. Every animal on earth, every plant on earth has its nature, all right? And they are built stoically to exist within what their nature provides for them. And the nature of the black man, to a large extent, with due respect, I'm a black man too, so I'm not taking myself out, is that sometimes there comes a time that we become too ambitious. We pray to God, but we also want to help God in all things. That when He gives to us, we want another. So that request for upward mobility, negatively or positively, is innate in every black man. Now, what it means is that if we rush to put in here what happens in the United States of America, like the Constitution has said now, what is it? It's just a copy and paste thing. What it means is that do we behave like them? These guys are not crazy about power. They are not ambitious to the extent that they want to take down another. But we are. It is such that it is a kingdom set against itself. Now, for me, my recommendation would have been easy. Simple. That the question will be, a reasonable question a man should ask himself to be, can the office of the governor, ditto for that of the president, exist without the office of the vice president or the office of the deputy governor? In my own understanding, I will answer in the affirmative. Yes, it can exist. If it can exist, why do you need this? Is it as it is now presently? Can the governor function? Can the president function without, or are they functioning without the vice president? Of course. Now, talking about the discretionary powers of the same constitution that has given everything 100% to the president and the deputy governor. One thing I want to tell you, Sonny, that you must know is that talking about these discretionary powers, the discretionary power is such that it reduces the office of the vice president and that of the governor in terms of allocating, assigning the responsibilities to them. It ties it to the same level. I didn't say it. The Constitution said so.
Okay.
All right. So the Constitution said so in section 193. It is there for the governors, and in section 146 or 148 is there for the president, who says that at his discretion he can choose to assign responsibilities to either his vice president, okay, or the governor in his state can choose to assign responsibility to either the governor or his commissioners.
Okay.
Vice president or ministers, commissioners or deputy governor. What does that tell you? What it means is that the governor as it is, the president as it is, can survive and work without having to be afraid, sleeping with one eye closed every day, and praying that he should not be hurt, he should not become mad, he should not die, he should not, nothing should come to his mind, that makes it become infirmed that he cannot perform the office. Incapacitated
yeah.
To the extent that he cannot perform the office.
Yeah.
Now, when a man believes that I can have all this through these negative lines and nothing positive,
yeah,
you can hardly stop it. And again, what has happened, the event has also revealed that again by nature, pray such that you do not have a child who wants to be born as the eldest coming to under you as number two. If it happens, it's a matter of time.
So this is more of a problem of individuals.
Yes.
Because you could find a vice or a president and a vice president, a governor and his deputy, having this harmonious relationship without mutual suspicion. How do we work on our being, on ourselves as individuals, to ensure that we're able to create that harmonious working relationship where there is no mutual suspicion?
It's just, see, the currency for ensuring that harmonious relationship will happen is trust. It is not in naira, it is not in pounds, it's not in dollars. And trust is a commodity that is not common. All right? And the recipe for it, for you to show that I haven't trusted you, you have to believe me and move with me in that order, is also trust. Both are not easy to come by. Now, in that case, how do we tame, except first you can tame the ambition of a living being. A living being, in this case, a black man. Yeah, some men are naturally good, I tell you. They will not aspire to be anything that has not been given to them. They believe in waiting for their time. But I've also told you, Macbeth, a fine soldier, a fine citizen, a loyal being to his king, all right, was told by the witches. Having also conquered, representing the interest of the state, of the empire as it were, coming. The first prophecy they told him came to pass immediately. Ten of Cawdor, thou who shall become king. And he said, if I can become 10 of Cawdor, which was not possible but now I am here. It means that I'm one leg close to it, all right? Therefore, it began to manifest. It began to well up and all of that. Now, I told you before, even if the deputy governor or the vice president does not want to be, you will always find the witches that haunted my
and so they should be aware of those witches and wizards around them.
Unfortunately,
you can't be aware of them.
Unfortunately, will you run away from your wife, for instance, if she's one of them? Will you run away from your mother, your sisters, your brothers, who wants to be the first family? They are not satisfied with the second family. A man who never thought he could be anything. Today, God has made you the number 2, whether it's in Abuja or in the subnationals. Why won't you just take it one at a time? If it is the will of God to make you governor or to make you president, after the boss you are serving, who has the ticket, although the constitution masquerades as something that has to do with both of them, you will find out that if it will be your time, it will always come. Okay. But what is dangerous, like I told you, is that the governor may pray, the president may pray for as much as you want to pray, to be protected by God. Yes, God will continue to protect you. Even when the deputy governor or the vice president is aspiring to take over his position by again praying that he should die, you know, sometimes does it occur to you that even sometimes when the governor travels, when the president travels, do you think that, in all honesty, let's be frank, when they say, Mr. Governor, save Johnny, you think that it's coming from the deputy, he really wants him to come back? Or when the deputy governor...
Most time we see deputies, vice president, you know, mounting the saddle and, you know, handling governmental affairs, driving government and stuff like that.
See, the monarch of Benin can do better because he knows that nobody's breathing on his neck. He sleeps and he wakes up well and is in control of his kingdom. The president of a country can do better without having to sleep with 2 eyes opened in the fear that somebody is somewhere praying or somebody is pushing somebody to ensure that all of these bad things happen to him, to clear him off the way. Ditto for the governors. For me, I just think that if a military in their wisdom can be governor and do or did all that they did without the presence of the deputy governor, why not? Okay. In any case, the emergency rule under the constitution, you know, that can take out a governor in the interim and bring out another, does not also make provision for the deputy governor. Yes. They do well. Yeah. It has to be what it.
So that's why we're back to why you said. I mean, after all, the governors or the president can do well.
Of course, see, they may be friends, good friends before they come in.
But when they are in, because of this mutual suspicion, this bossing ring created by the constitution itself, yes, that has not done well, you find men, even when the deputy governor is not thinking about it, when the governor opens the pages of his constitution and is reminded that the man that is there is a tire, or said this tire is bad, you are the main tire, that is the spare tire, until you are bad, he cannot come in. Then he continues to pray that he's good. Somebody believes in him that he's good, and he too, he has his own family too. Okay. Who will tell him, my husband, my son, my father. Do you think that constitution can checkmate this one word?
As it is now?
Yes.
Constitution can checkmate it by amending through Section 9 to take away this thing that...
That's your key recommendation?
Yes, that constantly create fear. You can take it away, and that once the fear is gone, governance becomes easy.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Washington Osausi, for your time with us, sharing perspectives on how we can leverage on good working relationship between state executives and their deputies to ensure good governance and, of course, ensure that we make bigger, greater impact